Thank you for joining us for the afternoon session of the Aspen Cyber Summit. Please welcome Laura Coates, anchor and chief legal analyst at CNN, and our panelists, Senator Gary Peters and Senator Mike Rounds.
I enjoy the mysterious music. Is that your normal intro, gentlemen? I love it. Well, welcome, and thank you all so much for being here. This is a very important conversation, and I'm glad to be here to share it with both of you. So thank you. Let's start off with the reality that many people following a government shutdown are very concerned about the ability of Congress to get along and get things done. You two, different sides of an aisle, join together on a united front on this issue. Why is this the one, not just the one, but a one, that has been able to have that buy-in and that support from both of you?
Want me to start?
Sure.
I think it's because when we talk about cybersecurity, it literally impacts everybody throughout the United States. It is not one that is a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's one that literally people face on a day-to-day basis. They see it in their own social activities and so forth. What they don't see is the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes by lots of really smart people to make sure that their systems and their connectivity are safe. And so for us, on a pragmatic basis, behind the scenes, from the day that this really got started, we have done our best to make sure that this has always been done in a bipartisan way. Whether we're talking cybersecurity on the Armed Services Committee, or in the Homeland Security Committee, which Gary is on, or in the Intelligence Committee, these are bipartisan in terms of the way that we approach it, the way that we ask the questions, and we work hard at trying to keep it as much as possible on a bipartisan basis.
Senator Peters?
Yeah, I'll just concur with that. And the example that Mike and I work together, we don't just work together on cyber issues. There are a lot of issues that we work on. And I think that, unfortunately, it's a story that's often not told. You always see the conflict in Congress and the things like the shutdown, which are hyper-partisan, obviously. But a lot of work is done that is done in a bipartisan way. And we've both passed a lot of bills that have been bipartisan. And we both believe that the best solutions are ones where we can get it passed with both parties coming together. One, they're going to be more long-lasting. Otherwise, it's going to be another administration comes in and changes it, then the next one comes in, and that's not a way to run a business. It's not the way to run a government, so we do that. And then to pick up on Mike's point, obviously this is not a partisan issue. Everybody's faced with it, as he said. We've got to deal with it. And it's very technical. We have to have a lot of expertise to do this. And Mike and I'll be the first to say, we're not the ones with all the expertise. All of you are the ones with all of the expertise. And
Some are nodding in agreement with you.
They are. They're saying, yeah, that's right, buddy. I remember that. But it truly is. You're the one that has the expertise. And I'm the ranking member now as the chair, but now the ranking member. That happens when you're in the minority. For Homeland Security, I've got a very sophisticated staff, but we're all ears. So as we're having this discussion here, please know that reach out to us, talk to us. Mike is open as well to give us what's actually happening on the ground. And the one thing that is so challenging, as you know, everyone here about cyber, is it's changing every day. And it's only getting more threatening and more serious. And with some of the recent news with AI and Anthropic and the espionage going on there with AI tools, it's only going to get more concerning. And so we need your help. We need your activism. I'm glad you're at the summit here, but please know that your advocacy, your knowledge and expertise here in Washington is absolutely essential. And the only way I get it is if you're contacting my staff.
Yeah, and let me just add something to that. I don't serve on Homeland, but I do serve on the Armed Services Committee, and I chair the Cyber Subcommittee for Cybersecurity. But I'm also on the Intel Committee as well. And the one thing that I find is that we're expected to make decisions about how to respond to cyber threats. But like Gary said, look, we struggle. We're like third graders on this stuff. And there's a whole lot of people out there with PhDs. But we've still got to make a vote one way or another or make recommendations on legislation. The only way that we make good policy calls on that is if we get the inputs from lots of different people, whether you're talking large companies, small companies, whether you're talking folks that are recognizing challenges that AI may be developing for us, or people that are promoting AI, because face it, AI is not going away. And we have to win this issue. We have to win it. It is us or China, and it has to be us. And so when we talk about that, it's a matter of how it is managed. We need that expertise that comes in from the private sector, from the organizations that actually study this as a full-time job. But we still have to make those calls, and we need the input from you in order to do our role.
But given the changing nature and the pace at which the evolution and progress and advances and threats come in, do you ever worry that the bureaucracy and the bureaucratic pace, signing legislation today might be obsolete shortly thereafter? Is that a concern for either of you? Senator Peters?
Yeah, I mean, it is a concern for me. And the other thing that, in fact, we're working to try to deal with what I think is a major concern, and maybe some heads will nod again too. We have too much duplication when it comes to regulation in the cyber area. You know, I hear from a lot of cyber experts, like many of you in the audience here, that say you spend way too much time checking boxes to say that you're doing certain thing for different agencies. You know, you'll have, especially in the financial institutions, which clearly are a major target for cyber criminals, but they have 12 different regulatory agencies that have different rules. And if you're spending a disproportionate amount of time with regulations, you're not defending the network like we all want you to do. And we already know that we have significant challenges when it comes to recruiting quality cyber professionals and training cyber professionals to come into there. We have a shortage of folks, and so your time is at a premium. I need to have you, or our country needs to have you working as efficiently as possible. And so we have legislation to harmonize, to say, how can we get it so you have one agency that you have to work with, who's hopefully a partner in helping you, like CISA or others, not a regulatory agent that's getting in the way of your business, but is assisting you, providing additional resources, which is what we'll talk about, I'm sure, the cyber protection bill. But that's going to be important. So please take a look at our harmonization bill. I'd love to have your input on how we can make it work better for you, and so you're not doing box checking, you're instead making sure your networks are secure.
Let's talk about that bill, because Senators, you first introduced a reauthorization for, and I want to get it right, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act. That was earlier this year in April of 2025. That was months before the law expired. But why were you unable to advance that bill in the way that you wanted? And what happened in the months leading up to this?
It comes out of Gary's committee, and Gary, if you want to start on it, I'll fill in. Sometimes it sounds like it's a partisan issue. It is not. But it is a case of where you have to have agreement on the part of the committee in order to send it out. But Gary, why don't you fill in and let me fill in side stories, okay?
Yeah, that'd be great, Mike. So we have a 10-year bill that was expiring, and it was extended through the CRs, and it expired at the end of September. Now it's part of this new CR for January. But you can't just do a piecemeal kind of movement. It's got to be a 10-year full reauthorization. And many of you are familiar with the CISA 2015, which allows you to report quickly. You have liability protections. It's trying to get that information out as quickly as possible. It's been working. It's a good legislation. I don't know, 80, 90 stakeholders have already endorsed having the 10-year extension, that it's essential. The administration supportive of it, the Trump administration supportive of it. And we've already saw some of the problems when we had the lapse. We had a lapse during the shutdown. We had one company that we talked to that said that they went from reporting cyber attacks to CISA. They went from being able to do it in 30 minutes to doing it in 24 hours. 24 hours is a lifetime, as all of you know, when it comes to cyber. That's simply unacceptable to do that. We know the law works because we had one financial institution that specifically talked about one of the learning about a cyber attack as a result of the bill and protecting against over 5,000 attacks that followed as a result of that. So the bill works. We got to get it passed. But you have to have the chairman of the committee and supportive of it. I'm the ranking member. The chair is Rand Paul from Kentucky. He does not support the legislation as written. He wants to put additional stuff related to CISA not the bill. In fact, we changed the name because people were conflating CISA 2015 with the reauthorization of the agency. Some folks have a problem with the agency. They think that the agency was involved in misinformation during the pandemic, talking about how vaccines were good and you should be wearing a mask, those kinds of issues. So they want to make some changes there. But that unit doesn't even exist in CISA anymore, so that's behind us. But people were thinking, well, this is a reauthorization of the agency. It's not. It's just the reauthorization of these critical authorities and the ability for companies to report when they have a cyber attack and know that they have liability protections. That's why Mike and I reintroduced it with a different name. So it's now the PACT Act, Protecting America Against Cyber Threats, so we don't get that.
Will that work?
I hope, so we're trying to clarify that. But the chairman wants to do other legislation that's not related to it, and that's a problem. And Mike and I live in the world in the Senate. I remember when I came from the House to the Senate, I was told, Gary, you're gonna love the Senate because one senator has a lot of power. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that sounds cool. They go, but there's a problem. What's that? One senator has a lot of power. And we're actually seeing that right now. So it probably won't be a standalone bill. We're going to have to get it in a defense authorization or other kind of bill. So we're looking at every avenue that we can to get that in. I would certainly encourage all of you to reach out to the leadership. Senator Thune, who is the leader, although he understands the severity of this, and I think, Mike, you can talk about that.
Is he in support of it, knowing the severity?
Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, look, here's the deal. You can do standalone legislation, but it can take up to 2 weeks to push a single bill through the Senate because you have time limits put into it designed to slow things down unless you do things by unanimous consent. So one senator does have a lot of ability to slow a process down, and the question becomes, is it worth 2 weeks of Senate time of delays for one piece of legislation? So if you can put together a series of those into a package and get a number of them done at one time, you can move forward. But right now, we've got an appropriations package ready to go on the floor. We've got a large series of nominations that have to come through. And while you can consolidate that a little bit, you've still got lots of time on the floor to get those two done. But the next items on the agenda will be to actually pass the defense appropriations bill, Labor H, THUD, CJS, or I want to say CJS, yeah, but justice basically, and that'll take a priority. Well, as you do that, then this sets there. But we were successful in getting this included in the continuing resolution through the end of January. Hopefully by that time, we will have the vast majority of the appropriation bills already completed for the rest of this year, and we'll be able to move into some of these other packages, such as the one that Gary's talking about, and get it across the floor of the Senate. There's one more thing that I think is really important. It's not just the ability to protect companies from liability. Let's just say that you have two of the major companies and they want to talk about a cybersecurity threat that they hit or that they're concerned about. If they want to talk about that between themselves, you want to have protections from antitrust accusations. And that's part of what this does, is it protects them against a state coming in and saying, you two big boys are talking to one another on this thing here. We're going to do an investigation to find out whether or not we got some antitrust issues going on here. That's what this is kind of about, is making sure that they feel comfortable in sharing that information back and forth about where they find places where bad guys can get into their systems, and then share it so patches can be made as quickly as possible. There's another piece that I want to interject in this just a little bit. It's not like these companies are just sitting back and waiting for companies to do them. We actually have at the armed services level in our cybersecurity teams, the national cyber teams, we actually go overseas. And with permission of other nations, we go in and we look at their national cyber systems, at their information systems within their governments. And we find out where Russia or China have actually tried to put things into their systems or have found ways to get into their systems using software that might be utilized elsewhere in the world. We call it hunt forward. And what we do then is in order to make life miserable for those bad guys, is we get that information, we share it with the company or with the country where we found it so they can do the patches, but then we also come back and we then make it available to all of the other organizations so that they can patch it any place else in the world. It's frustrating for the bad guys, but it's very helpful to be able to share all that information. And
Senators, does the failure to be able to reauthorize what needs to get done and the severity of it, does it undermine that sort of intelligence sharing?
No question about it, because then when they start sharing with one another,
We're excluded.
Then they were less likely to do so until they could get the protections back in place. But what we did with the authorization that goes until January 30th is we backed the liability protections up to October 1st. So any of those companies out there that were doing it or were thinking about being able to do it, they know that they have protections in place right now without a gap in coverage. So for liability purposes, they have been protected.
Do you have the issue, I mean, obviously, we're in a room full of people who have extraordinary expertise on the importance of what we're talking about, and will be able to use their leverage, their insight, their knowledge to be able to help expedite a number of things. But how about the public's perception and buy-in? It's very complex to think about. They know that they want to feel safe. They know, they hear phrases like identity theft. They think about financial vulnerabilities and beyond. They think about services being down. When you think about the complexity of the issue, is the public's understanding of this issue in any way a hindrance or a help to trying to pressure the right bodies?
I think you got to have more public awareness. I think that's important. But I would start also just public awareness within Congress itself. You know, Mike and I work on these issues a lot. The folks who are in our committees work on those issues a lot. But I don't think it's widespread. A lot of my colleagues who don't deal with these issues on a daily basis, they've got a long list of things that they have to deal with on a daily basis that I don't get as much involved in as they do because of our committee structure. So it's important for your advocacy. I mentioned one person in particular, the chairman, to reach out, but it's reach out to your members of Congress, your senators, sit down with them, talk with their staffs, give them an understanding exactly what the threat environment is like and why these tools are absolutely essential.
Because what's the risk if you're only reactive to legislation as opposed to proactive? What's that risk?
And proactive, and then even if we put something forward too, if we have to do it on the full floor, we have to then sell it to a whole lot more members who may be having a different view of it, or they're going to hear a different side of the story. They need to hear from you. You are the experts. You're the folks that know. They need to hear from you. But you're right about the public, too. The public has to have, part of it just have a better understanding of cyber hygiene to protect themselves, too. You know, so much happens that, as you know, the bad guys always seek the path of least resistance, and that's people who just don't know some of the basic concepts to protect what they have. And I think we all have to do a better job of educating folks on cyber hygiene.
Senator Rounds, first of all, that phrase made you giggle, the cyber hygiene. I don't know if he doesn't want that T-shirt for some reason, but you like that? Maybe you'll get it. It's a sweatshirt, who knows? But let me ask you about state and local governments. What role do they play, if any, in navigating this space?
They play a huge role, but part of it's because they are a user of all of the different systems, but their systems are critical because so much of it goes right back down to the public in terms of what they provide for public services. But even at the local level, if you think about it, the infrastructures that we have, it's not just the utility companies. A lot of your utility companies are municipal utility companies. When you're talking about the finances of government, you want to make darn sure that if a government is supposed to be paying their bills on time, that their system isn't shut down or that their institutions that they do business with aren't impacted. So, I mean, that's really where the rubber meets the road, because they deal with people every single day, one-on-one, but they also provide services to everybody in that area, whether you're talking about a utility company for water or for electricity, or you're talking about a sewer system. Those are all areas that they use computer systems to operate them. And China has been very, very good about quietly going in and embedding products that can be activated at a later date that will impact it. And the reason why they want to do it is because just in case we have a confrontation with them, they want to disrupt us at the public level so that we realize that they know who we are, they know where we live, and they can impact our lives on a daily basis. You'll see airline systems that don't work correctly. You might actually see one of the stock exchanges just delay a trade a little bit, and that will shut things down. And this is their way of sending a message that we are at risk as well, not just them.
And just to add on, because it's important, the state and local. We do have a state and local grant program for cybersecurity, which is incredibly important. I know in Michigan we've had a large number of these smaller municipalities have been able to use those funds to get the kind of protection software that they need. I will just put this out that those funds now are at risk. We're seeing a lot of these grant programs are being frozen. They're not providing that money. So this is another area for advocacy because the weakest links need to be closed. That's why I think it's a federal function to provide resources to protect them because it's also protecting the broader system. But people in Congress need to hear from all of you that that kind of investment in cyber protection at the state and local level is absolutely critical to protecting the whole system.
And we've got to get a lot of the offices that have nominees waiting to get in, we've got to get those folks in and get them approved and get them into their jobs as well, a lot of which are not, they're not Democrat or Republican in nature, they are simply operating, and we've got to get those folks into those places.
Well, I think we have our marching orders, Minnesota, South Dakota, Michigan, the Midwest doing their part. How about you guys? Thank you so much. Thank you, Senators.